Now we're going to cover how do you decide when to employ somebody. When I think normally you'll know when you're at that stage in your business, it's a really exciting time considering bringing someone else into the team. But usually you might have a situation where you're having to turn down work, or you're working so hard, but then you don't do any kind of selling or networking, so things are very up and down. You might have an idea in your head how many hours a week that you want to work on your business, and you might be doing more than that, for example, or you might be having to actually say no to work, which is a shame. If you're looking to grow the business, you don't really want to be turning work away. So these are all indicators that perhaps you should be bringing somebody else into the business. This doesn't necessarily mean at this stage that you have to take them on as an employee. There are other options, of course. You can use freelancers. You can subcontract the work out to somebody else. You can outsource the work to people like virtual assistants or people like myself, for example. But I guess if you're here, you are looking to employ. You've decided that those options aren't quite right for you. And bringing someone into your business does feel scary, I understand that. But with a planned approach, it doesn't need to be scary. It really doesn't. Hopefully through this course, you're going to listen and hear, how to make sure that you are protecting your business, how to make sure you get the best from that person. You're really clear about what you want them to do and how you want them to do it. And you can set expectations really clearly from the start, which is so critical. So the first question to ask yourself is, what type of support do you think that you need? As part of this course, I will share with you a tool which I use myself in my own business, which will help you to decide what your person should be doing, what to include in their job description, what things you want to delegate and stop doing or do less of perhaps. So park that for now, and we can revisit that question in one of the next modules. If you have been outsourcing tasks, so for example, if you have a VA or if you're using a bookkeeper or someone doing your social media, it is worth reviewing what you're already outsourcing to see if it's still the right decision. So for example, if you have historically used a virtual assistant to manage your email inbox or your diary, but you're now going to bring in an administrator, we need to keep in scope that work, because it might be that you bring it all in-house, all back in-house, or it might be that you don't. You might want to think, well, actually, what I really need is a highly qualified person to take on some of the actual work rather than supporting you doing the work. It really depends. But like I say, I'll take you through that tool, and that will really help you to kind of get firm on that. One of the reasons that you probably don't want to go down more the self-employed route, a lot of businesses we talk to initially, they want to go self-employed route because they feel, it's cheaper, they can switch it off a lot more easily. But you need to be aware there can be issues of quality control and just general lack of control actually around using freelancers or self-employed people. But we also need to be really careful that they are definitely self-employed, that you're not just labelling it self-employed because you think that's easier when actually they could fall into the scope of an employee. So the things to ask yourself, if you are genuinely wondering, should I be using self-employed staff or should I be offering employment? There's a few questions. How much control do you want over them? Do you want to be very clear about how they do their work, when they do it? That will they be following laid down processes? Do you wish to pay them a fixed salary or a fixed hourly rate, rather than kind of a fixed fee for a scope of work, which is more aligned to self-employment? And do you want them to work mainly for you, so they're not going to be working for other people, or are they going to be working for lots of other organisations? If you're sort of saying yes to most of those questions, yes, I want a reasonable high level of control over them. Yes, I want to pay them a salary or an hourly rate. Yes, I want them mainly to work for me. Then they are less likely to be self-employed. They're more likely to fit into an employment category. So that's a sign that you're ready to employ for the first time. Also, if they're doing a relatively process-driven job, so for example, you're going to bring them on as an admin assistant or a customer service assistant or sales, marketing exec, they're unlikely to be self-employed. These are jobs where you are going to be having quite a high level of control over what and how that person's doing. On the other hand, if they are coming in and they're saying, I'll deliver 10 social media posts a month, and they're working with other clients and you're not requiring them to necessarily be told how to do their job, then that is more self-employment. It can become quite complicated, and there is a tool online, actually, the HMRC's tool, that is an indicator of whether someone's self-employed or employed. But, talk to someone you trust, talk to your accountant, drop me a line if you're not sure. But as I say, given that you're here, I'm assuming that you've decided that you do want to take on an employee in some form. The first thing to decide is, can you afford it? You can't turn off an employee quite as easily as a freelancer or a subcontractor. So do a budget forecast, look at your costs around the salary, what you think you're going to be paying them, the number of hours they might be doing, so their actual costs. Don't forget to include things like pension. So you're going to be paying 3% on top of their salary in pension, and also national insurance. You need to include your employer's national insurance on top of that. There are some calculators online, although don't forget you will receive employment allowance, which will cover the first 5k of national insurance for your business, which will probably cover your first employee and maybe even yourself. I like to do a budget in Xero, which is the accounting package that I use. It really helps me to track how I'm doing against the budget that I've set. But ask your accountant or your bookkeeper to help you do that. It's really important to know that you can afford it. Once you've decided that it's definitely a goer, you need to think about getting set up as an employer. There are some really key steps to take before you make that job offer. So watch the next video. That will explain to you, the steps you need to take to make sure that your business is registered properly, and the types of things you need to do to protect yourself as a business. Then we're going to go on to think about, what type of contract do we want to offer to somebody? Is it going to be permanent, full-time, part-time, 0 hours, flexible? There are lots of different variations which we'll go through later in the course. So, but for now, there's some key things to think about. When are you ready to employ?